The company that accidentally launched Sweet Baby Detected and changed the gamer landscape is finally making waves outside of fan circles. It seems that a Square Enix shareholder has questioned the company about whether Sweet Baby Inc. is involved in the development of games. Let's talk about that on That Game Place.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to, another wonderful video of excellence here on That Game Place. And today, our focus is on one particular company that accidentally created a monster, a huge monster, a curated list of things that you probably don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. Of course, we're talking about Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, and the company, as Jonas mentioned, that accidentally created this whole problem, Square Enix. And now, we have revealed the fact that Square Enix shareholders are, well, maybe a little bit concerned about that. Jonas?
That's right. This article out of That Park Place, where you should go if you want to know about this stuff, even before we put it on the YouTubes. Square Enix shareholder questions company about Sweet Baby Inc.'s involvement. This by John F. Trent. A Square Enix shareholder questioned the company. If you are unfamiliar with Sweet Baby Inc., the company's mission is to inject woke ideology in the form of inclusion and representation into the video game industry. I would say it's a little bit more than inclusion and representation. The company's CEO, Belair, has also encouraged individuals to terrify developers and executives in order to obtain her company's mission objectives. I'm going to disagree with John Trent here. I think this is actually more about making Sweet Baby Inc. money than it is about actually including representation or inclusion in the video game industry. During a presentation at the GDC in 2019, Belair details if you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many years, put this stuff to your higher ups, and if they don't see the value and in what you're asking for, when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want. Because they have to consider, I say that out loud as a joke, but it's actually very, very true, because if you start to consider the people who are player and audience facing, and you have to deal with mitigating harm and with keeping the sentiment around their game and project positive, there's like a genuine value that you could impress upon them both ethically and financially. You could say this is important. Culture, do you want to react to that?
Well,
what does that sound like to you?
Well, it sounds like the mafia. I was hearing The Godfather in my head for some reason, the wonderful soundtrack from the film. But no, this is extortion. We're going to send you in there as our little activist warriors and try to draw out, the financial resources of your company, because otherwise, we could cause you problems. You don't want problems, do you? You have a nice little game here, see?
I would say it's also maybe even false extortion as well, considering how many people that I know of that are fans of video games and like to spend buku bucks on video games.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily a fan of forced representation and forced inclusivity.
Well, and specifically in AAA games, right, Jonas? Where, I mean, what's the median price of a game right now? $69?
That's right. They've gone to the $70 price point right at about the time that everyone is used to that $60 price point, and everyone is questioning whether or not they have the money to spend on video games. Those are the normies. Those are the ones that that aren't sure if they're going to pick up any game, and they're only going to pick up the ones that hit the big dollars. They're the ones that everyone plays, so that they can be part of the community experience. Of course, here's a nice little picture here. Sensitivity reader. Risk assessment. Then that's what these people are. In fact, they're sensitivity readers. Disney, who we often talk about over there on the That Park Place channel, and of course on thatparkplace.com, when they talk about sensitivity readers, they're talking about the Stories Matter initiative, which stopped finding problems and started creating them in order to solve them. I think that Sweet Baby Inc. is firmly in that area right here. Now, that being said, we don't need to talk about what Sweet Baby Inc. was. We need to talk about what they've been doing here. It appears at least one Square Enix shareholder was concerned about Square Enix being listed as one of Sweet Baby Inc.'s clients on the Consultancy's website right here. As we can see right here near the middle, Square Enix is featured. The shareholder asked during a recent report, "I'm personally happy about the shift from quantity to quality. I hope good titles will come out in the future. I'm concerned about the Canadian consulting company Sweet Baby. Square Enix is listed as a client, but is there actually a transaction there? What kind of transaction is it? Will they continue to do so in the future?" So they're naming Sweet Baby as a concern area here. And this is, by the way, this is translated from Japanese. So this is a question that is being brought forward by someone who is, I don't want to assume their familiarity with Western culture here, or whether or not they are a Western adherent. They could in fact be a Westerner who's saying this in Japanese. But generally speaking, Japanese developers and Japanese companies are not concerned with the American concept of wokeness.
Right.
Culture, you have anything to add there?
No, in fact, most of them are actively against it. There are trying to force some of these agenda items in over there, but it's not going particularly well.
I would agree. I would agree. Square Enix president Takashi Kiryu responded, "I would like to refrain from making specific comments about individual clients as we shift from quantity to quality. Providing content that is enjoyable and safe for our customers is also part of what makes a product fun. We will do our best as creators." Wow, there's so much to read into this statement, because I can see either side reading the idea of enjoyable and safe. It's like liberty and tyranny. One can view the same thing and define it differently. Why do you think, Culture, do you understand where I'm going with this on the idea of enjoyable and safe?
Yeah, I reacted negatively to those comments when I read them the first time. I'm like, well, okay, it doesn't mean that you aren't going to continue to do business with this type of consultancy who is, telling you that they're making your games enjoyable and safe. They may be safe from profits if you follow along with these consultancies. So, in not answering that question, it says more about perhaps the amount of engagement that they have with the Sweet Baby or any of these other consultancy groups. At least that's how I read it.
Right, and I have an entire channel called Everything Woke, where I review content to determine whether it is safe, and to list all the items so that parents, I should say, can determine whether it's safe. I generally don't make judgment calls, or at least if I do, I don't do them in anything other than sarcasm. But safe is such a subjective term. When we're talking about video games, safe as far as a rated M for mature game is different than safe as in a child's game that introduces unusual concepts like identity politics or gender in non-traditional ways. Whereas there are, of course, people who view safe as being inclusive of all people, and therefore people who don't view people who view traditional views on marriage and family as somehow unsafe for consumers. So that word "safe" is very loaded. So it's not. It has multiple definitions. So I don't know. I'm going to assume it's going with the one that you described there, Culture, as safe, meaning safe for people who want to make money off of inclusivity. This line of questioning also comes in the wake of Square Enix working with a consultant group, Black Girl Gamers, on their Forspoken game. Interesting. There they are. Forspoken was a massive flop and resulted in Square Enix shutting down the game developer Luminous Productions and absorbing it into Square Enix. Luminous announced it was shuttering in February of 2023, and we don't need to go through every line of that here. But
one wonderful mention there. That was a month after the game launch, by the way.
That's right, when they would be receiving most of the profits and talking about DLC and things like that. Finally, to wrap up here, Square Enix representative Yosuke Matsuda admitted the game sales were not good during the company's financial results briefing back in February. He said, "Reviews of Forspoken, which we released on January 24th of 2023, have been challenging. However, the game has also received positive feedback on its action features, including its parkour and combat capabilities. So it has yielded results that will lead to improvement of our development capabilities of other games in the future. That said, its sales have been lackluster, and while the performance of new titles with February and March release dates will be the ultimate determinant, we see considerable downside risk to our financial year 2023 earnings." So that was a hit to the entire company because they decided to. By the way, I'm just going to point this out here. Culture, AAA games. How many of those do studios release in a year?
Not very many. Maybe one if they're lucky.
Yeah, because they're massively expensive.
I mean, you're looking at $500 million at times or more in game development costs. I mean, it's insanity. You could have a game in development for 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, look at Rocksteady's game that flopped, the Suicide Squad game, right? That thing was a hot mess from the very beginning.
And we're
Right?
still seeing the fallout from that. There was an
Yeah.
announcement of a Mr. Freeze that may actually be a Mrs. Freeze, but still
Oh boy.
possibly. See, this is where I didn't get a clear picture here. Of course, the image made it onto the internet, and it wasn't confirmed until it was taken down by a copyright notice from WB Games to say no. In fact, we did have a Mrs. Freeze, who maybe was biologically the same as a Mr. Freeze. But that being said, we want to throw this to our commenters. What do you think about this situation? Are investors finally getting engaged? Also in Japan, in the same way that investors are finally getting engaged over there at the Walt Disney Company. We would love to know your thoughts on this entire, let's say, fiasco. Fiasco is a good word, right? In the comment section down below. Let's not make the comment section into a fiasco. Well, maybe you could do that too. It might be good for engagement. Like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Game Place. Uno más games, culture. Uno más game.
Uno más.